over the years, I have kind of grown my musical palette up to be, I would call it diverse personally, or, to just switch up the styles to keep things fresh for me. And because you do that, you will come across some big hits for yourself or like gems, as you would call them. But of course, as well, if you are trying to dig for those gems, you will also just have some duds. And, be aware of the title, bands I dislike, There are some not very bright people online that will just see, they hear a band and they're like, oh, they're shit, oh, they're doomed, their whole world crushes in. The whole world crashes in, but I'm like, it's fine, mate. You can listen to these bands; they're fine, but I personally dislike them. So there are some other videos on this channel where I'm like, this is overrated, or this is dumb, or I'm not into it. But yeah, these are bands that I just genuinely dislike for reasons that I will make clear as I go on. So first, some or honorable, dishonorable mentions that bands that I do think deserve a mention because I just really do not understand the hype that they get. But they are not significant enough for me to really call to really hate on personally. I don't dislike them enough. So bands that just missed the mark for me are, let's start with Sleep Token. And Sleep Token is a band that I've honestly not really heard a lot of, but what I've heard is just not impressing me at all. I'm just not impressed. I'm not interested. And Sleep Token is kind of my, you know, they are the blueprint or the example for me on how to write bad modern metal music, because their style's a bit, what would you call it, alternative. It's a bit proggy, it's a bit metalcore, what the fuck even are they? I don't know, but you've heard Sleep Token and it just kind of sounds like a mush, It just sounds like a mush. You can't really can get a distinct sound out of them. I can look up the genre text, but I barely care enough to mention them. They barely scraped on the dishonorable mentions because I just don't really care about them. Um, but Sleep Token is the perfect example on how to write bad modern metal music, because it's big and catchy enough to get on the radio or to get mainstream attention, but it's not significant enough to stay in your head. So it's always just like, it's kind of nothing, It's kind of like they are kind of like the Imagine Dragons of metal music, I would say. And Imagine Dragons, I'm also not a huge fan of. Like, who is? But at least with Imagine Dragons, I can sometimes I have, how's that song called again? That dubstep late song. They're all kind of the same, so it's kind of hard to distinguish them in my head. But that's one fucking song that broke them through. The air in my system, welcome to the new. That song. I don't want to sing the whole thing because their label would probably copyright me. So I don't want to risk that. But I'm also not huge on that band's. Big surprise there, but I'm actually on Metal Storm. That's the site I use to check out metal bands. I'm not a huge metal archives guy. I'm not really sure that the site works personally, but I've always used Metal Storm for that. And they actually don't even have Sleep Token up there. Like, even with Ghost, I do like Ghost, but Ghost is kind of like on a similar mainstream level. But Ghost has a lot more notoriety on Metal Storm. They're like almost in the top 100 most popular bands because they're huge. They're like a huge revival band of metal. They're like, what even are they? They are like a combination of Black Sabbath and You could say Led Zeppelin maybe, but also a bit more psychedelic. So maybe the Zombies. You know, Black Sabbath and the Zombies. That sounds like a good combination to me. You know, to good music listeners, that's probably that rings a bell for you. If you recognize good music, then that sounds like a good match. And yeah, listen to them. I think it's good. But yeah, you know, if you look at their albums on Metalstorm, at least 6, 6.3, 6.4, 5, 5.6, like they barely pass. They barely pass as like mediocre metal. And that's just what I would call them, mediocre metal. I just do not care for them. I just do not give a shit about Sleep Token, so I don't get why they're so big. I don't get it personally. What even are they? Alternative metal, I saw. So that was one tag I had to correct. Gent, of course. I will get into Gent later. And art pop, that is a weird one. They're apparently also art pop, which I do not hear that personally. Maybe their most recent album. I just don't. I don't care, mate. You can't force me. You can't force me. Hold a gun to my head. You can't force me. Blow my brains out. I don't give a shit. Another band that I dislike this band, but not enough to really throw them on the top 10, which is Black Country New Road. I just I do not like that singer. I do not like that progression. It kind of sounds like, you know, like a post-rock indie band, like slow, methodical, calculated, concentrated bullshit, and it's pretentious as fuck because it's indie. It's basically everything I hate about post-rock and indie rock, and I personally love post-rock and indie rock. I really like those genres, you know? I love Slint, I love Explosions in the Sky, I love God is an Astronaut. My current favorite post-rock band is Indie Haldi with Eternal Enjoy Eternal Bliss. I love that album. That's such a fantastic album. So I don't have an issue with post-rock. I love that genre. You know, I just hate this band. I dislike the singer. I dislike how slow and boring everything is. And I've just named like 5 bands that I love in that genre. So it's not an issue that I have with the genre. I just do not like that band for the reason that I stated. I personally do not get it. And they're huge. They're a huge indie band. They're a huge band on, of course, Rage Your Music. I believe Album of the Year loves them. Of course, Anthony Fantano glazes the fuck out of them because, of course, he does. And I just do not. I do not get it. You know, it kind of sounds like another car seat headrest band, like one of those like indie bands that is just very, you know, pretentious and slow and just calculated bullshit that I do not care for that sound. I really do not get it. You know, that lo-fi production sound, I just do not get it. And I do like some lo-fi music, like Dinosaur Jr. and The Microphones. I think The Microphones are a great band. Just listen to The Microphones. But I'll get to like more indie lo-fi stuff later in my actual top 10. Because I think you can all guess who would be on there, but I will continue. Another dishonorable mention is Joy Division. Joy Division, I just one of those bands that is very like lo-fi, another just lo-fi band. I do not care about that low fidelity kind of music. If you say it like that, you know, English is not my primary language. But I just do not care about their lo-fi post-punk sound. And again, I do love post-punk, you know? The Cure, great band. What else do you got there? You got one of my favorite bands, Have a Nice Life, which is amazing. You know, Deaf Consciousness, amazing album. You have, you know, another album that sounds like that is Jal Scory, which is like a dark folk album. Also really good. Kind of sounds like... what was his name again? You know, fuck. You know, the guy that sings really good. Like he has kind of a similar sound to Kate Bush, but baroque pop. You know, it's one of those baroque pop artists. You know, that has a similar sound to, I would say, Kate Bush and the Beach Boys. You know, the Pet Sounds era. I really want to know now because I love his voice. I think that the production for me is a bit too lo-fi to really call him a favorite, but I do love his voice. He is a great singer. So I would definitely recommend that if I can fucking remember his name. That really annoys me. I should know this. It's kind of embarrassing because, this is a legendary artist. I type in Beach Boys on Raging Music, and the first song that I get is a Weezer song. Shame on you, Raging Music. Shame on you. Weezer was close to making this list, but, I do have a kind of, nostalgic memory with the Blue album, Pinkerton, the White album. There are moments of that I like, so I didn't hate them enough. There's a Japanese band called Beach Boys that used to be called the Spacemen. That's interesting. I didn't know that. His name is like on the top of my tongue, but I'll type in Baroque Pop. Pet Sounds, of course, #1 album. Who was on there? Scott, yeah. It's not Scott Engel, but that was one of his nicknames. Scott Walker, yes. Scott Walker, great fucking singer. I love his voice. I'm not sure why I was looking at Broke Pop, because I was talking about The Cure, solo artist, yeah, something like that. You can watch this back. Come on now. Yeah, but not to go too much off track. I just do not like Joy Division. That was the main topic. I have a tendency to go off track, like you noticed. But yeah, The Cure, like I said, that's just great. Have a Nice Life is better. If you can consider them post-punk, Talking Heads, I would say, is better. New wave post-punk. They had a lot of different styles, but they are better. My current favorite band in post-punk is the Chameleons. Script of the Bridge is a masterpiece. That is, in my opinion, the greatest post-punk album I've ever heard. It's like very gothic and dreamy. It's kind of dream pop. So it kind of combines those elements of, I would say, Kate Bush and Scott Walker. Kind of sounds like that, but more in a goth style like Joy Division, but, not shit. Because I don't think that Joy Division sounds good. The only song I kind of like from them is Shadow Play, but even that, I'm kind of like, it still sounds kind of like shit, but, it is the better song. It's a better composed song, but still not great. And of course, I love What Tears Apart. I despise that song. It's kind of like Nails on the Chalkboard to me. That's not a great song in my opinion. Pretty repetitive, pretty lackluster singing on it. I just do not like that song or that band. I just do not like Joy Division. I don't care. They're, in my opinion, they're the perfect example of a brand, not a band. Like another band on this top 10, but I'll get to that later. I'm almost 50 minutes into this video. I'm only talking about dishonorable mentions. That's pretty funny. But I'll get to the top 10 soon. The second last band is Swans. I do not care for Swans. I've hated Swans. They would be on my top 10. The hate has kind of died down because Swans is a band. I've enjoyed moments of Swans. Let's say that. There are moments on that post-punk album that they did that I like. That was another band I would say is decent in post-punk. I would say that is their best album with like the rabbit kit on the cover. I'm not aware of the titles, but I do. There are moments of that album that I like. It's an interesting post-punk album, I would say. You have the soundtracks for The Blind. I think that's decent. I think it's too long. It's just way too long, but the sound of it is actually pretty well composed. But I believe their first album is called Thief, and I just hate that sound. And that's what they're most known for, that no wave sound. That's not necessarily an issue that I have with them, but it's just I do not understand no wave. It's like there's no music, there's no like musical structure, there's no musicality in it. It's just like very industrial, loud, obnoxious noises that they make. That's how it sounds to me. It sounds like you're in a industry where people are just smashing metal plates. That's how it sounds. I do not get that sound. You know, I just dislike no wave. Um, you know, and Swans is the face of no wave. They are the biggest band in that genre, and if every band sounds like Swans, I think it sounds like shit. So that's why I dislike that. I mainly dislike that first album that they did. To Be Kind, I also really hate, but there are moments of that album as well where I'm like, this song is decent. There is a composition here, and other songs where I'm just like, this is garbage. So I'm very mixed on that one. The first album I just hate. I hate that first album and everything that sounds like that because it's just a repetitive loop of noise and garbage that I just do not get. Anything dissonant, I just do not like that. You know, I don't like dissonant music because there's no musical structure to it. You know, the whole point of dissonant is that it's not structured. And I like structure. I like composition. I like melody. And dissonant is the opposite of that. So it's like a fuck you to my music taste. So I do understand that people like dissonant. I do not like that. I personally do not like dissonant music. Call that basic, call that poser, call that normie. I don't care. I don't like that sound. So I'm not into it. The closest thing I like to dissonant is Deathspell Omega because they combine some like black metal and some lo-fi aesthetics in their music and some like really dark brooding sounds that I do like. So Deathspell Omega is a exception to the norm, I would say. I do like that band. They're not my favorite or something, but I do enjoy what I've heard. So Deathspell Omega is good. You know, other bands can be good as well, like Portal, but I haven't really gotten into that sound. So there you go. Last dishonorable mention that I also do not really care about. You know, most of these dishonorable mentions I do not care about. Almost dislike, they're on the verge of dislike, but you know, not enough to really warrant a dislike label. So that's why they're dishonorable mentions. The last band in that lane is My Chemical Romance. And I don't necessarily hate this band, but I just hate the culture around it. I just hate how MCR fans are like, oh, they're the greatest band. Oh, the Jared Way is my husband. You know, they would die for this band. This is a die-hard fan base, and I'm like, it's pretty simplistic pop music. I don't really understand. It's kind of like the Beatles thing all over again. It's like just overrated mediocrity. That's how I would describe it, at least. I would not call this emo personally. I don't think that's emo. You know, it's too, you know, pompous and just too overly big to really call it emo, because emo is more in your own feelings. That's literally the definition of emo. But you know, that's not what MCR is, so they're not emo. But yeah, you know, they are kind of like the face of that now, and I'm like, this is not emo. So that is kind of annoying to me that people call this band emo. That annoys me. And, you know, they also are on the top of the pop punk charts. And I also don't think that's correct because, you know, I think, you know, Dookie exists. You know, the Green Day album, I think that's classic. If you want something a bit more obscure, Pup, I think PUP, Pup, is also a pretty good band. You know, that's more modern, more in that Green Day, Blink-182 style. I think that is better. You know, Pup is better. And my personal favorite, Jeff Rosenstock. I it did really take a while to really get into his style, but I do really like his emotional kind of side to that now. So I would just call him the better My Chemical Romance because he is emotional and he is pop punk. So I'm like, yeah, Jeff Rosenstock smokes My Chemical Romance. So I'm like, why doesn't he get the acclaim? You know, he does get the acclaim. He's very critically acclaimed. He's like second on the chart, and I'm like, he is the best. I'm like, he is the best, but MCR is the face of pop punk, you know, and Green Day. But My Chemical Romance they don't get shit. Green Day does get shit because their modern output is pretty bad. That's one thing I will give My Chemical Romance. They quit. They quit whenever pop punk wasn't relevant anymore. I'm like, yeah, In the 2010s and afterwards, it wasn't really relevant anymore. Jeff Rosenstock, I would say, is a revival band, but after that, not relevant anymore. Don't cover pop punk, please. Pup is an exception to that. I do think they are good, but besides that, I don't think that pop punk really warrants a revival personally, because what can you do that hasn't been done already? All those like other bands like Sum 41, Newfound Glory, Paramore, it's on the verge of that, I would say. I think they're more of an alternative band, but those bands, those are perfect examples of 2000s pop punk. Keep it there because that was whenever it was relevant, and MCR did that, and yeah, I think that it should stay in that decade. And Jeff Rosenstock pop pub is is the exception. They're not the norm. So yeah, that people are still like glorifying MCR. I do not get it. Um, I did not. I actually did not predict that I would. That's 20 minutes of this video would only be dishonorable mentions. Let's get into the actual top 10. So yeah, for people that are just tuning in, skip to 20 minutes if you want the actual top 10. these were just dishonorable mentions. Number 10, Neutral Milk Hotel. I kind of hate this band. It started off strong because, I've kind of made my distaste for Neutral Milk Hotel pretty clear, because I do not like the singer. I think the singer is pretty atrocious. And just the way he sings and the way he talks about Anne Frank on that, that breakthrough album that they did, the Aeroplane Over the Sea, that. I think it's creepy, it's weird. I think, the way he sings about it is just very weird. It's very off-putting. It's just not really in my ballpark to listen to that type of music. It creeps me out. I don't think it's poetic. I just think it's disrespectful to Anne Frank. I just think it's very weird. Bands that I would recommend in the style, I haven't really looked at alternatives, but from the top of my head, I would recommend, Sufjan Stevens has a similar folk style on his earlier releases. Just listen to that. Nick Drake, great folk. I would say that, Bob Dylan is a way better songwriter. Just listen to Blood on the Tracks, Blood on Blonde. Just way better, I just think that those are the better songwriters. So just listen to those bands. Neutral Milk Hotel really ain't that special, and I just do not get the hype. They are really just overrated and bad in my opinion. It's just very bad folk songwriting in my opinion, and all those bands that I just named are a million times better in my opinion. Number 9 is a split for, these are actually two artists, or bands as you would call them, but they are so similar that I couldn't really pick one or the other. I think the more famous one is Eric Clapton. But yeah, I couldn't also ignore Elvis Costello. So number 9, Eric Clapton / Elvis Costello. The main thing that I hate about these guys is that these are essentially two people that took a black art form, like the blues, and that's kind of initial folk rock sound, or not necessarily folk rock, but that blues psychedelic sound. Especially Eric Clapton did that with Cream. I don't really mind Cream personally, but anything Eric Clapton I would say is bad. The only song I kind of like from him is Lila. But my issue with Eric Clapton is that he is so predictable. He is so boring. He is just very mundane. He's very milquetoast. I do not care for his sound. I think it's just very, very fucking boring. And there were moments that I was watching Your Favorite Band Sucks. That's a podcast that I follow, and they were talking about the Jimi Hendrix episode, or Cream, I believe, one of the two. And whenever Jimi Hendrix would play and Eric Clapton was coming up next, he would hear Jimi Hendrix and he was like, "Fuck, I'm screwed, I'm doomed," because Jimi Hendrix just annihilates you. I'm like, Jimi Hendrix exists, or he existed. You're fucking irrelevant, Eric Clapton. Jimi Hendrix is superior to you in every way. He is just the way better musician. So I'm like, he is better. You know, if you wanna talk appearance wise, he looks better, he sings better, he plays better, he's a better lyricist, he's a better composer. I can go on. I can go the fuck on forever. He is just the better human being, in my opinion, or he was the better human being. Jimi Hendrix was an incredible guitarist. You know, no one will deny that. Jimi Hendrix was an incredible guitarist. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of his music, but the dude could shred his ass off. He was incredible. Like blues, psychedelic, anything that Eric Clapton played, Jimi Hendrix would fucking smoke you, and it's not even close. Elvis Costello also, he didn't have that sound necessarily, but he kind of reminded me of Eric Clapton as well because he has very racist remarks towards black blues artists, which ironically they both kind of ripped off. So I'm like, hey, why are you having these racist remarks to people that you ripped off? You know, these people made your career. Shouldn't you be like happy or grateful to them? You know, to like, I believe they were racist to, I believe, maybe Sam Cooke. Who else? Not Sam Cooke necessarily. Marvin Gaye, I believe. They were very racist towards like some black soul and blues artist. Um, who else? Chuck Berry, maybe. Chuck Berry, perhaps. And there was one other artist that Ray Charles, I believe. They had very racist remarks towards like a lot of classic black blues and vocal jazz artists. Or what was Ray Charles? More of like that doo-wop sound, I believe, like a bit more bluesy. I haven't really listened a lot to that music, but I do respect my elders, or like elders now. But that's history. That's historic music. I'm like, of course you respect that. I'm not a huge Marvin Gaye fan, like I cited in my overrated list, but I never was racist to the guy. I do respect his legacy. I just personally do not like it. I'm not a fucking racist towards him. But Eric Clapton and Elvis Costello are. They are actual racist to those people that they ripped off. And I'm like, fuck you, man. Fuck you. Also, the music isn't very good. That was my main point. But, their racist remarks make me hate them more. Not the actual black people, but, the artists that I have on this list. They're pretty despicable to me. Their music is fucking boring and bland, and I just do not care. I don't even care to talk about Elvis Costello, the musician. I don't even fucking care. That's how much I don't care for them. I just dislike these people. Very racist, very dated, just very boomer, dead, white guy rock. All of those fucking artists, I do not care. But Eric Clapton and Elvis Costello are the worst type of white death rock boomer music because they're blatantly racist as well. That's why I hate them the most. Listen to your Led Zeppelins, listen to your Deep Purples and Van Halens. I do not care. Those bands are fine. Just don't be a fucking dickhead and don't be racist. Should be pretty obvious now, but some people still don't get it. Like these two. Fuck you, Eric Clapton and Elvis Costello. Number 8. Which was actually a surprise for me because I have cited these people or this band to be a favorite of mine. Or, I think if you go back to my top 100 favorite songs list, they're actually on there. And that would be surprising. I think they're actually on the brim of the list, like on the verge of it, like number 100. And I actually do like this band in song formats. Like if you play individual songs, I have them with individual songs and some AMVs of it. I have like one song where I have like Kara no Kyokai, which is Garden of Sinners, which is like an amazing movie series in my opinion. And that AMV has like the fifth movie mainly, and that's arguably the best Hikaru no Kyokai. But, I love those moments. I love whenever I watch the AMVs. I love whenever I watch them live, live clips. And whenever I listen to singles, I think that this band is great, and that's the band Meshuggah. And that is probably the most surprising band I would throw on here, because I do like I said, I do love some moments of Meshuggah. But my issue with Meshuggah is that if you play an entire album front to back, it's mind-numbing. It's actually fucking mind-numbing to me, because I tried to listen to Nothing the other day, and I had it on, and I was trying to throw it on my favorites list, because I was like, I still need to, I was looking for every metal genre out there. Actually, the last band and genre that I got into was this one. And I will talk about this style later. Maybe I have them on. No. Why the fuck would I have this on here if I were the shirt? Would it make sense? But anyway, Meshuggah, I do not fucking care, because I tried to listen to Nothing, and I was like, I want some gent on my list. Not a lot, but just a gent release on there. And Meshuggah was kind of the only thing that I really knew. So I was like, let's refresh my memory. And I was like, oh, this is the reason that I don't listen much to this anymore, because it was just the same fucking shit over and over again. And, I'm not calling Meshuggah bad musicians. I'm not even calling it bad music. I'm just saying, for me, it's just very repetitive, very mind-numbing, just really fucking one note. And for those reasons, I just do not care about Meshuggah. I think it is some of the most repetitive and just one of the most, what's the word there? Like one note bands ever. Like they're even more AC/DC-esque than Slayer, I would say, because Slayer has those like wild riffs that kind of are chaotic and all over the place. And Slayer is not on this list, because I do enjoy some Slayer albums. I do like some Slayer riffs. There are moments that I like of Slayer. But with Meshuggah, everything sounds the same. Every fucking album, every song sounds the same. I cannot distinguish anything. They're the most AC/DC band ever, in my opinion. I do not understand the hype for Meshuggah, because I hear them, I hear a moment of them, and I'm like, yeah, this is fine. But whenever you put on a whole 40-minute or like hour album, just an hour-long album of theirs on there for me, you're like killing me. Like my mental couldn't comprehend that. Maybe that's it. Maybe I'm just too dumb. Maybe I'm just too unintelligent to understand Meshuggah. Maybe if I really listen to every, every cymbal crash, every time signature, maybe then I would get it. But for me, it's just too one-dimensional. I do not. Yeah, I mean, it's probably the Rick and Morty meme. I'm just not high IQ enough to get it. That might be it. But I really do not like songs are fine. The songs are fine. I don't mind Meshuggah's songs. Just the albums, just how this band sounds. I don't like it. What can I tell you? I don't like it personally. I don't understand personally. It just numbs my brain. It's great for antidepressants or something, or like a medicine, like a medicated band. But for actual enjoyment, I do not like Meshuggah personally. So yeah. Number 7, which also might be a surprise, but I've already bashed these guys in a other video in the overrated list, I believe, which is Genesis. And I was kind of split between Genesis and Rush, because I've given Rush a lot of shit in my overrated list, but at the end of the day, I would listen to Rush. I do listen to 2112, I do listen to Hemispheres, I do listen to Moving Pictures. I have listened to those albums, and I would listen to those again, because I do enjoy some of those albums. I do enjoy it, I do think they're very overrated, but La Villa Strangiato, great song. Subdivision, amazing song. That's my favorite Rush song. Tom Sawyer, classic. Limelight. I would say those are all good songs, so I would listen to that. But with Genesis, like, no one would defend the Phil Collins era because Phil Collins in and of himself sucks. No one would actually say Phil Collins is a great musician, right? Maybe on the Skins, maybe you can say he's great on the Skins, but like his solo career, fuck no. No one would call it good music, right? Like the closest thing that I've kind of enjoyed to Phil Collins music is the Tarzan soundtrack. And Phil Collins is the least likely person to do a fucking soundtrack on Tarzan. You know, that hunk dude, that ripped dude. And I'm like, have you seen Phil Collins? Fat, bald, white guy. He isn't Tarzan. Why is he doing the Tarzan soundtrack? I do not get that personally. I do not understand. So with Genesis, it's kind of like that. Like the second half of their career is already shit because of Phil Collins, but then the first half, I would argue, is even worse because it's not as in your face and pop centric as the later stuff. Because it is bad, but at least you can still dance to it. It's still like a pop track, so people can still enjoy it on the radio. But with the early stuff, it's pretentious, it's lo-fi, it's Peter Gabriel is singing, and I personally hate Peter Gabriel's singing. I do not like how he sings. I think, in my opinion, he's a very bad singer. I do not understand why people praise Peter Gabriel. Maybe for show because there are pop songs on that with Kate Bush, so people maybe have the illusion that it's good. But I'm like, Kate Bush is on there. Just listen to Kate Bush because she smokes anything that I'm mentioning here. Genesis, Phil Collins, Peter Gabriel, anything. She smokes, annihilates all of those artists, in my opinion. Or I shouldn't even say in my opinion. I would say that's objective. Like Kate Bush is just the better musician. Either way. I'm like David Gilmour trained her. Of course she's gonna be a fucking proc god, a proc goddess. She learned it from the fucking Pink Floyd. Of course she's gonna be up there. So I'm like, why do people praise Genesis? The Lamb Lays Down on Broadway, I think that's their most acclaimed album. Just listen to The Wall, or, one of my personal favorite rock operas, I would say The Human Equation by Ariel. Amazing album. Fucking amazing album. I love that album so much. It's proggy, it's heavy, it's melodic. It has kind of like I would say, a Lord of the Rings adventure tone to it. So I just love the vibe of that album. It has James LeBrie on it, Michael Eckerfeld. I think maybe Devin Townsend was on that. It's just very proggy. So it's not like it's not like neo prog, but it's actual prog musicians. Prog musician composition. I'm like, fuck, that's great. It's a really great one for me. Proto Man, the father of death, I believe, something like that. Their second album, great. The Deer Hunter, I think, is a great rock opera. I'm not sure if they're rock opera or like symphonic rock, but Electric Light Orchestra, million times better than fucking Genesis. Electric Light Orchestra, just who doesn't like that band? ELO, great. Just listen to that. Great pop sensibility like Genesis has, or it has a pop sensibility like that pop rock prog sound that Genesis tries to do, but good. So I would just call that good Genesis in my opinion. ELO. So just listen to those bands. Those are a million times better in my opinion. I just do not understand the hype for Genesis. I think that Peter Gabriel, Phil Collins, bad musicians, bad singers. I never care to listen to Genesis. They're my least favorite prog rock band. I was considering Rush, but I had Rush phases. So if I said I dislike them, I would lie because I have enjoyed Rush. So not nowadays, but I have enjoyed them. And if you want actual like good prog, Pink Floyd, like I mentioned, they have good moments. I wouldn't call them necessarily a good band, but they have good songs, I would say. They have moments that I love. You have Yes, that's probably my favorite. Like classic prog. Yeah, Mars Volta, amazing. King Crimson, amazing. You know, just the classics in my opinion. Just listen to those bands. Just listen to good prog. Genesis ain't good prog in my opinion. I would almost say objectively not good, but I will get a lot of shit for that from the prog community. So just in my opinion, I think it's very bad music. Number 6 is Rammstein. Rammstein, however you want to call that. The one thing that I already hate about this band is the pronunciation, because of course Rammstein is a German band, and one time I said Rammstein, which most people around me would say it like that, but there are some like greasy nerds that walked up to me and were like,
No, it's not Rammstein, it's Rammstein. Get it right.
you know, something like that. It's just fucking annoying. It's obnoxious to deal with their fans, in my opinion. So, and like My Chemical Romance, the fan base is obnoxious. So I really don't like that. And it's not mainly that I dislike the bands for the fans, because the fans are not them, you know. So that would be kind of it would be disingenuous to hold that against them. But at the same time, I do kind of blame them for that, because their show antics are just so, you know, so pompous and just so obnoxious that I think one time they were so loud and obnoxious in their area of, I believe, you know, the main group of Germany, where they held like big football shows, like big football matches, and the Bayern Munich, I believe. I believe they were playing there, like in that football stadium, and you know, in they are in that grand level, like Bayern Munich. I mean, you know, the football club. They were on that level because they're just that fucking big, and they were so loud that they were triggering car alarms. They triggered car alarms from people because they were so fucking loud. And I'm like, yeah, you are an actual danger hazard to Germany right now. So Ramstein is actually fucking dangerous. The most dangerous band in the world, you know, shit like that. But um, I just hate what they do. I just hate their show antics. I hate how fucking huge and just over the top they are, because I'm like, it should be about the music, but Rammstein is all about the show antics. They're all like, "Oh, look at my flamethrower dick. Oh, look at how I butcher meat's life." You know, just all that ridiculous shit. I'm like, is this about the music? There's a song that I like though, which is called Sunny, I believe. I'm not. Don't fucking ask how to pronounce it that in German. You know, I don't do customer service, so don't fucking ask me. But yeah, I just do not care about this. I just really do not understand the hype. Rammstein is the perfect example of all style, no substance. That's essentially how I would call them, because Rammstein is a live spectacle. If you don't see Rammstein live, you would be like, what the fuck is this all about? Why is this such a huge band? And you would say that if you actually only listen to the albums, you were like, why is this such a huge band? And that's exactly why I dislike them, because they're all about, you know, the show. You should see them live. They're essentially the modern Kiss. If you haven't seen them live, oh, they're not. You don't get it, man. Yeah, I don't get it because I haven't seen them live, and I don't care because I've heard the music, and I don't think they should be that big. They're, in my opinion, the most overrated metal band ever. You know, I will get to the most overrated rock bands, but I don't think that's a huge surprise, or I don't think I will shock anyone with that. Number 5 is U2, and this is kind of a split for me between U2 and Michael Jackson, because I don't necessarily dislike Michael Jackson, but I've just like U2 and Michael Jackson. Usually when I like get to work and they would play like some of the standard stations there, it's always fucking U2 and Michael Jackson, just those two back to back. And I'm like, There are more fucking musicians out there than Michael Jackson and you too. I'm like, you also have their contemporaries like Janet Jackson and Prince. I'm like, just listen to those bands or to those artists. I love Janet Jackson. I love Prince. I'm like, just play them. They are a million times better, in my opinion. But you know, I don't dislike Michael Jackson, of course, because Thriller is great. You know, I can't deny that. Bad, I would say, is probably my personal favorite. Dangerous is pretty good. You know, with Give In to Me with Slash and some other standouts. Black and White is on there, of course. Jam, I believe he did with Kobe Bryant, which is, you know, in the music video at least, which is pretty great. So I do like Michael Jackson. Like, don't get triggered. I do enjoy Michael Jackson. I've heard him too much. I don't care really about Michael Jackson, and I don't care enough to throw him on here. That's what I'm saying. He's not a bad musician in my opinion. He's very musically gifted because he was abused as a child, you know, to do it right, you know, like that. Like how people used to raise children in a musical upbringing, which is very traumatic in my opinion. Don't raise your kids like that with the Jackson 5. But you know, he did have the best-selling album ever, which is Thriller, so it did work for something. Tough Love, it makes you rich. But yeah, U2. U2 is on this list. I hate Bono. I mean, that's not really a surprise. They are the most overplayed band ever to me because I hear them fucking every day. So I'm just tired of hearing U2. Sunday, Bloody Sunday, you know, which they just ripped off from John Lennon, which is not creative. One, you know, just listen to Metallica's One. People that love U2's One will be fucking traumatized by Metallica's One because it's just heavier, it's faster, it's twice as long, so you can enjoy it twice as long because it's an actual great song. Great, it's just a great song. Even if you want to get into that pop rock sound that they do, I think that Fleetwood Mac is way better. Steely Dan, I think, you know, smokes U2 in my opinion. The Smiths is more poetic and lyrical than U2. You know, Morrissey is a dickhead, but you know he has poetic lyrics. You know, the dude is a fucking wordsmith. Bono isn't. Bono is just preaching and pretentious, in my opinion. You know, I would even call the Beatles better, but that's not really surprising. Even the band that they get most compared to, Coldplay, I say is better than U2. Coldplay is a better band. Fuck the haters. Coldplay is better. Yes, I would listen to Coldplay every day over U2 because Coldplay just has better songs. They're better musicians, in my opinion. I would always say that's objective, but there you go. ABBA. Pop or pop, just pop music. ABBA, better. Kate Bush, better. Björk, better. What else? Sufjan Stevens is one of my personal favorites. Better. Just listen to good pop music. Just listen to them. Scott Walker, like I said, the Beach Boys, the Zombies. Just so much pop rock that is better than fucking U2. Just listen to those bands. Just listen to the good bands. There's not something personal to the people watching. I just fucking hate to hear U2 on the radio. I just fucking hate it because I've heard it so much and it's just so fucking mediocre. The only song that I would still say is good from them is New Year's Day. I like the bass in that, and I like Where the Streets Have No Name. That's a genuinely good pop song. I do like Where the Streets Have No Name because the atmosphere and the actual sound of it is good. Those are two good songs. Those are the only two songs that I would defend. But besides that, I fucking hate them. I, don't play U2 in front of me. I would murder you. They would throw me in jail because I'm just a certified Bono hater. I just hate that band. I don't play them, please. Work, please. Like they're kind of like the equivalent to the No Stairway to Heaven for me. Like that sign in Wayne's World. Stairway denied. And for me, it's just U2. U2 denied. Just do not play that shit, please. So annoying. Number 4, Muse. Muse, I think, is probably the most overrated modern rock band. You would probably say Coldplay, but Coldplay, they're still relevant. So that's still kind of ironic, I think, because Coldplay, like you have to draw some inspiration from Coldplay to actually make it in the music scene today. Which that's kind of fucked that you have to do that, but Coldplay is influential, so you can't deny that influence, that power, that's Chris Martin's songwriting. As you can't deny that because the dude knows how to write a catchy hook. And with Muse, I just hate that singer, the way he sings. He tries to sing like Freddie Mercury, but he can't hit the notes that Freddie Mercury can because you are not Freddie Mercury. Like fuck you, you are not that dude. But he does try to sound like it. But they do try to have that sound, that alternative, like gloomy sound that Radiohead has, because everyone calls Muse a Radiohead clone, and I'm like, yeah, but they're shit. They can't clone or you can't imitate Radiohead. For the record, I'm not a Radiohead fan. That's probably also a hot take, but I just do not. Tom York's voice and just his whiny ass screech, I do not like Radiohead. I don't hate the band. I had a phase with Radiohead, like Rush. I had a phase with them. So there are moments of Radiohead that I like. I like the kind of like glitchy, weird electronic sounds of Kid AS, especially the title track. I think I do enjoy that. When I'm in an ambient electronic mood, I would turn it on. Of course, you have way better music out there, like Orbital and Avex Twin, who smoke Radiohead in that department. So I'm not calling Radiohead revolutionary or great, but they are better than Muse. That's a tier above Muse to me. So there are moments of Radiohead where I'm like, okay, this is decent. This is tolerable. I can tolerate this. In Rainbows, I would say it's decent. With Muse, I can't do that. Muse doesn't have an In Rainbows. Muse doesn't have a Kid A. Muse just has moments of bass lines that I like Hysteria has a good intro bass line, and Black Holes and Revelations has some good songs on it, but the actual like vocal, the operatic vocal singing that he has, and just the way that they compose it, it's very just pretentious. It's just very overindulgent, I would say. It's just very pretentious as well. So it's like an even more obnoxious U2, but just more in your face. U2 is at least a bit more quiet and ambient in the background, so you can perfectly ignore U2. Muse is just like in your face, like, oh, look, listen to us. I'm like, no, fuck off, dude. I don't want to listen to you. So I'm just actively annoyed with Muse. So that's the reason why they're on there, because they are as generic and mainstream as U2, but they are more obnoxious. So it's hard to ignore them. So that makes them worse to me. I want to keep this under an hour. So number 3 is Bon Jovi. And this is kind of like where I got into glam, or like glam metal. And I do want to have that discussion for a bit, because glam metal is pretty lame. It's dead as well. So I'm like, yeah, it should be, right? But I was trying to get into this genre, and this was my last metal genre that I got into before I was like, I think I got enough metal on my plate, as it is. Maybe in the future I will scope it out again, but for now, I'm filled. And the last one that I wanted to get into was glam, and I just couldn't find a glam metal band. I just found it pretty hard. And with this, I was like, wait, is Bon Jovi categorized as glam metal? But actually, a lot of lists, a lot of playlists, and a lot of like documentaries, or how you would call them, would lump it in. They would lump it in there in the glam metal department. Even if I would look them up on Rage Music, I think they would come up there. Not on the actual top 10, because Bon Jovi is not good. But I was actually surprised to see that, yeah, they are labeled glam metal, and I'm like, this is pop. This is like actual pop music. yeah, it's labeled glam metal. I'm like, no, this is not heavy. I'm not one of those people that is like, oh, it needs to be heavy, otherwise it's not valid. I think you're pretty unintelligent if you think like that, but you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be heavy, but it's labeled glam metal. I'm like, no, Bon Jovi ain't metal. They're fucking pop rock. They've never sounded like a hard rock band either to me. You know, um, this band like just listen to Guns N' Roses, just listen to actual good glam. Dokken, Dokken is better. Rat is better. Cinderella, uh, fucking Winger is better than Bon Jovi. Bon Jovi sucks. Bon Jovi is lame. They're like mom rock. They're like mom pussy pop rock. And I'm not really against pop music because I love Kate Bush, I love Janet Jackson. So I'm not one of those like one-dimensional metal fans that is just into metal. I do like pop as well. Like I said, I've praised Kate Bush a million times. I do that for a reason. She's good. So one time, the singer of this band, Guns N' Roses, Axl Rose, he once was compared to John Bon Jovi, and Axel decked the fucking dude in the face because that's what you do to people that compare you to Bon Jovi. You deck them in the fucking face, and you deserve it because Bon Jovi is a lame ass fucking band. I don't think I have to go in depth about it. Bon Jovi, they are trash. Who likes Bon Jovi? Wine moms, soccer moms that don't know better. My aunt likes Bon Jovi because she knows dick about music. She likes Kensington and shit. She likes lame ass mom soccer arena rock music. Like I use rock in the lightest term, but to actually see that Bon Jovi's they are in a metal genre. That doesn't sound right to me. They are not metal. Guns N' Roses is fucking glam or like metal. You can say hard rock, but at least they have that hard distinction. Van Halen, you can also throw it on there. I think that is a bit more boomer rock, so I'm less into that. But Guns and Van Halen are just smoke. They smoke Bon Jovi, not even close. Number two, which I have a lot of personal issues with this band, especially with the singer, which is Red Hot Chili Peppers. Red Hot Chili Peppers, I hate Anthony Kiedis. I just hate that dude so much. The allegation that he has against him, the actual music, I just think is mediocre as fuck. It's just a white band ripping off Funkadelic. I don't think it's interesting in any way. If you want that actual like white guys doing funk music, just listen to Jane's Addiction. And if you can't stand, I believe the singer's called Will Ferrell, I believe. If you can't stand that singer, just listen to Mr. Bungle or Fate No More. And the thing with Anthony Kiedis is that he tried to sue Fate No More because he thought that Mike Patton was ripping his style. And I'm like, you don't invent anything, Anthony Kiedis. You have ripped off funk music. You are not the creator of anything. You are worthless, in my opinion. So I just hate them for that. They kicked Mr. Bungle off the tour. So they essentially cut Mike Patton's paycheck in half, and the rest of Mr. Bungle, Trevor Dunn, the creator of Mr. Bungle, he screwed over that band. And I'm like, fuck. I love that band. So yeah, fuck Anthony Kiedis forever. And the music of Red Hot Chili Peppers is just generic as fuck in my opinion. So yeah, I do not care. I don't like him. And Anthony Kiedis is a registered pedophile. So do with that what you will. Number one, of course, I have to mention Nirvana. I can't ignore Nirvana. Especially with this band as well. They kind of cut Axl Rose paycheck in half as well. But the main reason that I hate Nirvana or dislike Nirvana is that they are essentially the most one note and most just, in my opinion, one-dimensional bands as well. But people like them because of the punk and the blues aesthetics that they have in their grunge. like Guns N' Roses, like contemporaries like them. But Axl was actually kind enough to invite Kurt and Nirvana on the tour with them with Metallica, around 1992. And that was actually very generous of Axl Rose because, if you generally see Axl Rose and you hear about him, it's usually about how he's a cunt. And he was actually nice to Nirvana. So I was like, why are you not cooperating? It was very weird because it was like, yeah, you can like really put yourself on the map. So it was a great strategic move from Axl Rose. And Kurt was like, no, no, I'm not interested. No, I hate Guns N' Roses because they have nothing to say. And I'm like, dude, but you said Kurt said that he doesn't care about lyrics. He sometimes he scribbles down the fucking songs in the last 20 minutes before they have to go on. And that came from Dave Grohl. Dave Grohl said that Kurt would scribble them down 20 minutes before a set. And that is how they would write songs. That is how Kurt Cobain would write a song. And Dave Grohl was like, I don't know the meaning to this because Kurt just kind of pulled it out of his ass. And I'm like, why is this dude seen as the greatest musician of that generation? I just do not get it. He also killed glam metal. So he was like, yeah, I'm going to kill Molly Crew and, the likes Guns N' Roses and glam like that. And, I'm not a huge glam metal fan. So I'm like, yeah, they probably deserve that, but I'm like, Axl was actually kind to you. He actually tried to get you on tour and make you tour with them so that you can get major exposure with Metallica. Guns N' Roses and Metallica, arguably the two biggest bands of that time. And Nirvana was like, no, no, I don't like that style. Guns N' Roses has nothing to say. But at the same moment, he was like, yeah, lyrics, I don't focus on the lyrics. I don't have anything to say. But then you also point at Guns N' Roses and you say they have nothing to say, implying that they have value to give you. And I'm like, no, Kurt, you're a fucking hypocrite. So he's a hypocrite. Yeah, Axel called him or them junkies because they are. Kurt and Courtney are junkies. You can't deny that because just look at Courtney Love. Look at what happened to Kurt Cobain. So Axel wasn't lying. And I'm like, why is Axl Rose getting all that shit? And why is Nirvana still loved to this day? I don't really get that. I'm more on the Guns N' Roses side because they're just a badass rock and roll band. And, maybe controversial to say, Axl didn't blow his brains out. He kept the band together, not very long. He did kind of, the band fell apart. But at least he tried. He did try to make it work. And Kurt just said, "Fuck it, I'll blow my brains out." So I don't get it. I don't. That's more of a serious note to end on. But I don't glorify suicide. Of course, I don't glorify suicide because I'm like, you want to uplift and aspire the musicians that are great. And for Kurt, the way he went out and the way his music sounds, it essentially was just a downward spiral to actual suicide because the dude wasn't mentally stable, and you can hear that in his music. And especially if you hear the biography and if you read into the biography, I'm like, yeah, that's like his diary, man. Don't read that. If people actually committed suicide, don't read what a suicidal person has to say. That will also make you fucking suicidal or depressed. I'm like, don't read it, man. They have a diary for a reason. Don't read journals, bro. So yeah, that always just really creeped me out that people were like obsessed with Kurt because I'm like, you're obsessed with a suicidal junkie. I'm like, that's not a healthy mindset to live in. That's not healthy for that's not healthy for anyone. Apologies, I've done this an hour, and like I said, English is not my main language, but there you go. To end on a bit of a lighter note, I don't want to put Kurt down too much, I think he's a very problematic person, and he shouldn't have a spotlight on him because he kind of highlights all the bad traits in musicians, and people still praise him for him being a raw or like a real musician. I'm like, no, The dude was just high out of his mind most of the time, and he would scribble down songs 10 minutes before a set list. I'm like, no, that's not good songwriting. That's not good. You can call that raw or real, but it's not good. I'm like, why are people praising that? I don't get that, you know? So for those reasons, I think that Nirvana is the most overrated band ever. And you know, for grunge, just listen to Alice in Chains. They are, you know, if you want to call them heavier, they are heavier. If you want better songwriting, just listen to Soundgarden. If you want to hear the birth of grunge, you know, the actual blueprint of grunge, surprise, it's not Nirvana, it's the Melvins. Just listen to the Melvins, Houdini, anything, just anything by the Melvins is better than Nirvana. It just is. You can debate that with me all day, but you know, Kurt, the MTV Unplugged thing that he did, awful because he popularized that sound, and because of Nirvana, everyone was trying to do that MTV fucking Unplugged sound. And admit, it's awful. It's pretty bad. If you enjoy that, you have bad music taste. It's very bad. So do not listen to fucking MTV Unplugged. Well, you can, but it's just bad. It's bad. In Utero is a mess. Nevermind is the most overrated album ever. And there's a Baby Packer on there. Who the fuck wants a Baby Packer on their cover? I don't, you know? So, yeah. They're just bad. The debut, bad. You know, everything they did, I don't care. I dislike it. You know, what can you say? I don't think that Kurt is a good musician, and everyone hates him. Everyone says, yeah, the Kurt Cobain standard. That's the standard I want to have. If that's your standard, you don't have a good standard. You know, there's no standard to begin on. So that's the reason that I want to put Nirvana number one, because everyone will say Nirvana is the greatest musical gifts they have, you know, and it's just not. It's just not. You know, call the Beatles overrated, but at least the Beatles had musical composition and they were actually sitting down to actually make a memorable album. And with Kurt, he would just scribble them out, and there's just not much meaning to that. You know, even Dave Grohl would say that. So there's not much there. So I'm like, yeah, they're overrated, you know? That's just what I think. That's why I dislike them. You know, I say overrated a lot, but, you know, at the end of the day, they did write some good songs. There are some memorable songs. Heart-Shaped Box, Commissioir. There are songs of theirs that are well structured, but it doesn't outweigh the mediocre songs that he just rushed out and he still is held in high regard. That is why I dislike them, because people are highlighting bad musicianship. And I'm like, no, you shouldn't praise Kurt Cobain for just him being, you know, raw and sloppy. That you shouldn't praise that. You shouldn't praise bad musicianship. That is just what I think personally. So just join the Guns N' Roses side and just rock the fuck out. I just think that's better, but that's my opinion, you know. You can call them overrated, but you know, I do enjoy them, and they at least sound heavier than Bon Jovi, you know. Bon Jovi just fucking sucks in my opinion, but there you go. Those are just bands that I dislike. I have a distaste for, so let me know your bands that I've missed. Maybe you hate. A lot of people hate this band, but I used to love them, then hate them, then I got back on the train, and I'm like, I like some good rock and roll. So, you know, Guns N' Roses, AC/DC, what else? Another like really weird band out there, Maximum the Hormone, kind of sounds like System of a Down. I really like that as well. Just listen to good rock music. Just it's not that difficult. Come on now. Listen to the Stooges, Funhouse. Great fucking garage rock, you know. Just listen to good rock music. Do not fucking listen to Nirvana. It's not good. In my opinion. I would almost say objectively, but at the end of the day, it is subjective. If you do like that music, go ahead. I can't force you. Those are just my personal preferences. So that's the video. Let me know in the comments down below what bands you dislike, any bands that I named or cited or are behind me that you would throw on there. Let me know in the comments down below. My name is voidxvi. subscribe to the channel. I would appreciate that. Let me know what else you would like to see. I'll probably continue, more band reviews after this. I was like, yeah, let's just switch it up a bit again. Band reviews mainly things that I like, but let's just throw some dislike on there. Let's throw some negativity on there. I was like, yeah, let's change it up, but that's it. Let me know what I've missed. Let me know what you would put on. Share your own top 10, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.